Welcome dear audience, students and scholars. Here I am Dr. Amjad Ali. In this video we will learn about labor market experience in the United States. Dear scholars, so far as we have developed the theory behind the natural rate of unemployment, we begin by showing that the economy's steady state unemployment rate depends on the rate of job separation and job finding. Then we discuss two reasons why job finding is not instantaneous. The process of job search and wage rigidity. The wage rigidity in turn arises from minimum wage laws, labor unions, and efficiency wages. With these theories as background, we now examine some additional facts about unemployment. Focusing at first on the case of American labor market, these facts will help us to evaluate our theories and assess public policies aimed at reducing unemployment. So let's discuss first about the duration of unemployment. While talking about the duration of unemployment, one of the main questions arises here. When a person becomes unemployed, is the spell of unemployment likely to be short or long? The answer to this question is important because it indicates the reasons for the unemployment and what policy response is appropriate. On the one hand, if most unemployment is short run, one might argue that it is a frictional and perhaps unavoidable. Unemployed workers may need some time to search for the job that is best suited to their skill and taste. On the other hand, long-term unemployment cannot easily be attributed to the time it takes to match job and workers. We would not expect this matching process to take many months. Long-term unemployment is more likely to be structural unemployment, representing a mismatch between the number of jobs available and the number of people who want to work. Thus, data on the duration of unemployment can affect our view about the reasons for unemployment. The answer to our question turns out to be more empirical when we show these types of answer in the form of data. So the data show that many spells of unemployment are short run in the case of United States, but that most weeks of unemployment are attributable to the long-term unemployment. For example, during the period from 1990 to 2006, 38% of unemployed people were unemployed for less than 4 weeks, while only 31% were unemployed for more than 15 weeks. However, 71% of the total amount of time spent unemployed was experienced by those who are unemployed for more than 15 months, while only 7% of the time spent unemployed was experienced by people who were unemployed for less than 4 weeks. Okay, while talking about the duration of unemployment, here we have some more empirical data in the case of USA to see how these facts can all be true. Consider an extreme but simple example here. Suppose that 10% people are unemployed employed for part of a given year. Of these 10% or 10 people, 8 are unemployed for 1 month and 2 are unemployed for 12 months. So totaling 32 months of unemployment. In this example, most spells of unemployment are short. 8 of the 10 unemployment spells are 80% and in 1 month. Okay, yet most months of unemployment are attributable to the long-term unemployment. 24 of 32 months of unemployment, or 75%, are experienced by the true workers who are unemployed for 12 months. So depending on whether we look at spells of unemployment or months of unemployment, most unemployment can appear to be either short term or long term. Okay, this evidence on the duration of unemployment has an important implication for public policy. If the goal is to lower the natural rate of unemployment, policies must aim at the long-term unemployed because these individuals account for a long amount of, or you can say the large amount of unemployment. Yet policies must be carefully targeted because the long-term unemployed constitutes a small minority of those who become unemployed. Most people who become unemployed find work within a short time. Here we have the variation in the unemployment rate across demographic groups. The rate of unemployment varies substantially across different groups within the population. So we have here the graph, some empirics, like we have the unemployment rate of demographic groups in 2007. In the case of USA, here we have the age groups, and that age group is 16 to 90 and 20 and above. We have the white men, white women, black men, and black women. So this table presents the US unemployment rate for different demographic groups in 2007, when the overall unemployment rate was 4.6%. This table shows that younger workers have much higher unemployment rates than older ones. To explain this difference, recall our model of natural rate of unemployment. The model isolates two possible causes for a high unemployment rate: a low rate of unemployment, job finding, and a high rate of job separation. When economists study data on the transition of individual between employment and unemployment, they find that those groups with the high unemployment tend to have a high rate of job separation. They find less variation across groups in rate of job finding. For example, an employed white male is 4 times better or likely to become unemployed if he is a teenager than if he is a middle-aged. Once unemployed, his rate of job finding is not closely related to his age. These findings helps explain the higher unemployment rate for younger workers. The young workers have only recently entered in the labor market, and they are often uncertain about their career plans. It may be best for them to try different types of jobs before making a long-term commitment for a specific occupation. If they do so, we would expect a higher rate of job separation and a higher rate of frictional unemployment for this group. So these figures explain this data, or this table explain that unemployment rates are much higher for blacks than for the whites. This phenomenon is not well understood. Data on a transitions between employment and unemployment show that the higher unemployment rate for black, especially for black teenagers, arises because of both higher rates of job separation and low rates of job finding. Possible reason for the low rates of job finding include less access to informal job finding networks and discrimination of employers. Okay, trends in unemployment over the past half century. In the case of US, the natural rate of unemployment has been stable if we look at the data given to us. you will see that unemployment rate averaged below 5% in 1950s, and in 1960s rose to over 6% in 1970s, and in 1980s, and then drifted back to around 5% in 1990s and early 2000s. Economists do not have a conclusive explanation of these changes, but they have proposed several hypotheses. Like we have here demographic changes on unemployment rate, and we have the sectoral shifts, and we have the productivity. So let's discuss about the demographic. One explanation stresses the changing composition of the US labor force. We have, after World War II, birth rate rose dramatically. The number of births rose from 2.9 million in 1945 to peak of 4.3 million in 1957, before falling back to 3.1 million in 1973. This rise in birth rate in the 1950s led to a rise in the number of young workers in 1970s. Young workers have higher unemployment rates, however, so when the baby boom generation entered the labor force, they increased the average level of unemployment in the case of USA. So then, as the baby boom workers aged, the average age of labor force increased, lowering the average unemployment rate in 1990s. So this demographic change, however, cannot fully explain the trends in unemployment, because similar trends are apparent for the fixed demographic groups. For example, for the men between age of 25 and 54, the average unemployment rate rose from 3% in the 1960s to 6.1% in 1980. Thus, although demographic changes may be part of the story of rising unemployment over this period, there must be better explanation of the long run or long-term trend as well. We have the sectoral shifts here. A second explanation is based on changes in the prevalence of sectoral shifts. The greater the amount of reallocation among regions and industry, the greater the rate of job separation, and the higher the level of frictional unemployment. One source of sectoral shifts during the 1970s and early 80s was the great volatility in oil prices caused by the OPEC, the International Oil Cartel. These large changes in oil prices may have required reallocation labor between more energy intensive and less energy intensive sectors. If so, the oil price volatility may have increased the unemployment during this period. The increase in oil price volatility in the 2000s, however, did not cause a similar rise in the natural rate of unemployment, but this may be because the economy is now significantly less oil intensive as measured by oil consumption per unit of GDP than it was 3 decades ago. Here we have another, that is the productivity. A third explanation for the trends in unemployment emphasizes the link between unemployment and productivity. The 1970s experienced a slowdown in the productivity growth, and in the 1990s experienced a pickup in the productivity growth that continued into the first decade of the new century as well. Okay, these productivity changes roughly coincide with changes in unemployment. Perhaps slowing productivity during 1970 raised the natural rate of unemployment, and accelerating productivity during the 1990s, lowering our low rate. So we have here the main concern that why such an effort would occur. However, it is not obvious. In standard theories of labor markets, higher productivity means greater labor demand and thus higher real wages, but unemployment is unchanged. This prediction is consistent with the long-term data, which show consistent upward trends in productivity and real wages, but no trends in unemployment yet. Suppose that workers are slow to catch on the news about productivity. When productivity changes, workers may only gradually alter the real wages they ask from their employers, making real wages sluggish in response to labor demand. And acceleration in productivity growth such as that experienced by the US in 1990s will increase labor demand, and with a sluggish real wage reduce the amount of unemployment. In the end, the trend in the unemployment rate remains a mystery. The proposed explanations are somehow given us the detailed information, but none seems conclusive on its own. Perhaps there is no single answer about the upward drift in the unemployment rate in 1970s and in 1980s, and the downward drift in 1990s and in early 2000s may be the result of several unrelated developments. Here we have the transitions into and out of the labor market. So far as we have ignored an important aspect of labor market dynamics, the movement of individual into and out of the labor market, a model of natural rate of unemployment assume that labor force is fixed. In this case, the sole reason for unemployment is job separation, and the sole reason for leaving unemployment is job finding. So in fact, movements into and out of the labor force are important. About 1/3 of unemployed have only recently entered the labor force. Some of these entrants are young workers still looking for their first job. Others have worked before but had temporarily left the labor force. In addition, not all unemployment ends with job finding. Almost half of all spells of unemployment ends in the unemployed person withdrawal from the labor market. So while talking about the transition into and out of the labor market, individual entering and leaving the labor force make unemployment statistic more difficult to interpret. On the one hand, some individual calling themselves unemployed may not be seriously looking for jobs and perhaps should best be viewed as out of labor force. Their unemployment may not represent a social problem. So on the other hand, some individual may want jobs but after unsuccessful searches have given up looking on job. These discouraged workers are counted as being out of labor force and do not show up in unemployment statistic, even though their joblessness is unmeasured. It may nonetheless be a social problem anymore. So here we have some alternative measures of labor underutilization. We have some definitions of the labor underutilization. We have one that is persons unemployed 15 weeks or longer as a percent of civilian labor force, including only very long-term unemployed. So normally this is 2.6%, and U2 job losers and persons who have completed temporary jobs as a person of the civilian labor force exclude job leaves. These are normally 3.9% of total unemployment, and U3 total unemployed as a percentage of the civilian labor force official unemployment rate, so normally 6.7% of total unemployment rate, and U4 total unemployed plus discouraged workers as a percentage of the civilian labor force plus discouraged workers, that is 7%, and U5 total unemployed plus all marginally attached workers as a percent of the civilian labor force plus all marginally attached worker, that is 7.8%, and U6 a total unemployed plus all marginally attached worker plus total employed part-time for economic reason as a percent of the civilian labor force plus all marginally attached worker, that is 12.5%. Because of these and many other issues that complicated interpretation of unemployment data, the Bureau of Labor Statistics calculate these U1, U2, U3, U4, U5 and U6 measures for the labor underutilization, and these definitions and their values as a number of their rates belongs to November 2008. In case of USA, the measure range from 2.6% to 12.5% depending on the characteristics one used to classify a worker as not fully employed. So this is all about labor market experience, the United States case. So see you with another video. Ciao.